What up, what up, what up? Good morning, guys. How's it going? Today, for my vlog, I want to talk about a video that I watched the other day. It was on the De Novo Nutrition channel. If any of you guys haven't checked out their channel on YouTube, highly recommend it. Some awesome videos on there. And one of the series that they produce is called Mental Muscle, where they do it's a video of somebody lifting and like a voice rather than music played over their lifting, and the voice is discussing like some sort of philosophical topic. And the one that, well, I've watched a lot of them, but the one I'm going to refer to in this video is called Fearless. And it's done by this guy named Ryan Doris, who's a powerlifter, and he's talking about this idea of fearlessness, and how people aren't born with it. Like, nobody's born with it unless there's something like psychologically or mentally wrong with them, and people develop it over time, and the only way to develop that fearlessness is just, he says, it's an incredible amount of all into something, just saying, you know, like, fuck it, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to achieve this goal. I don't really care what it's gonna require of me, what it's gonna take from me to achieve this goal, but I'm gonna go out there and do it. And he says that that is sort of the recipe for fearlessness, or the way that you should go about achieving fearlessness. And one of the things he says in the video, which is going to be the topic of this vlog, because I've sort of explored this thought on my own a little bit, and I think it's a pretty cool and interesting thing that he said. He says, death is like the ultimate procrastination. And like, I heard that and I wanted to know why, so I kind of thought about it more on my own. And this is sort of what I've gotten from that, or like what I've deduced from that, and like why death is the ultimate procrastination. So death, so what a lot of people, like, their biggest fear is death. And I could probably say that for myself as well. The biggest fear I have is death, because I feel like I have so much to contribute and so much left to do, that death would deprive me of doing those things and contributing those things to the world at large. So death is probably my biggest fear. I think that's a reason why a lot of people fear death, is just like they feel like they have a lot left to do, and they haven't done it yet. And like, that's not, for me personally, not necessarily because there are all these things that I want to do and I'm just not doing them. I mean, I'm still young, I'm only 19, but I think I've done a lot with my life up to this point. But you know, I'm still young. I think I still have a lot to do and a lot to contribute. So and so when he says death is like the ultimate procrastination, like, death is sort of this wake-up call. Like, let's say somebody said that you had 6 months to live or whatever. A lot of people will spend those last 6 months doing everything that they wanted to do in their life those last 6 months. And guess what? Those last 6 months aren't going to be enough time to do everything that you wanted to do on this earth. Like, I guess a lot of people have a bucket list, which is sort of like an abbreviated form of everything you want to do, just in terms of like traveling, like doing things of that nature. But like, in terms of achieving goals and contributing to society at large, like, those last 6 months aren't like enough time to, like, yeah, you could start and maybe that would provide some satisfaction, but you would not like get to the point that you would be happy with by the end of those, or maybe you would, I don't know. But the point is, if you have any goals or like ambitions for contributions to society that you want to make, those like last 6 months aren't going to be enough time. And like, you know, by waiting for a doctor to say that those last 6 months, that you have those last 6 months to live, you're waiting for death to give your best effort to life. Like, you don't have the strength to, by your own volition, give your best effort to something. So you have to wait for some external factor, which in this case would be death, which is the end of life, to finally give your best effort to life, which is awful. You shouldn't ever do that. So I think when he says death is like the ultimate procrastination, he's saying like death is the final wake up call. You only have this much time left on this earth. Do whatever it is that you need to do now, because you're not going to live much longer. And guess what? A lot of times we don't have that like notification that we have like 6 months to live, a year to live, 2 months to live. A lot of times we just die, whether that's a heart attack or some freak accident or whatever. A lot of times we don't have any warning about you're gonna die in a month, in 2 months, in 3 months. And then in that case, you don't even have time to do like that bucket list stuff or like start on some sort of goal or whatever that you have. And like as you're dying, you're like trying to give your best effort to life, to survive, to finally be able to achieve those goals and ambitions and stuff. Which is sad. And what's even sadder is I know of some people who like they were there, like they were at that point where it's like, okay, it's not like sure whether or not I'm going to live, and then they've come back and it's not like they've had some sort of like refreshed outlook on life. They still procrastinate on their goals and their dreams and stuff, which is also pretty sad. So yeah. And then one thing else I want to talk about with regards to the death as the ultimate procrastination is like, and what I think is so horrifying about it is we come into contact with that reality every day when we experience something that we need to do to achieve a goal that we don't necessarily want to do. Like within the day-to-day like activities that are required to achieve our goal, there are always going to be examples of things that we don't want to do, things that don't feel comfortable, things that like hurt or are painful, like metaphorically, not necessarily physically, or maybe physically too. But the point is, they're not painful because they're bad, they're painful because they're an obstacle and we have to challenge them in order to achieve a goal that we want. By putting those off, you're essentially falling victim to that idea of death as the ultimate procrastination, because you're saying like, I'll have tomorrow to do it, I'll have the next week to do it, I'll have the next month to do it, and you're essentially just continuing to procrastinate. And what's going to happen is that when people procrastinate, they don't realize that like nothing is going to change from now to later. Like you're still not going to want to do whatever it is that you need to do later that you didn't want to do now. So you have to realize that possibly the only thing that's going to trigger that like, oh my god, I need to do this now is death. Like, because death is just like the time when it's like, okay, I have no more time left, I need to do this now. And like we come into contact with that idea on a daily basis when we sort of like I said, like when we encounter these experiences and these obstacles and these challenges that are necessary for us to undergo to achieve a goal that we don't necessarily want to undergo or to experience or to go through. And so it's scary that like we come into contact with those things every day, but I also think it's incredibly powerful to think of those challenges and obstacles in that context, because it makes you a lot less likely to procrastinate on them, right? Because if you know that nothing is going to change from today to tomorrow. You're still not going to want to do that thing tomorrow as much as you didn't want to do it today, and that at some point there's going to have to be a trigger to make you challenge that obstacle or progress through that obstacle, and that trigger is never going to come until somebody tells you you have this much amount of time left on this earth. Then that's an incredibly powerful tool to go out and just challenge those obstacles that you want to procrastinate on, because you recognize that it is going to be that you're not going to have the opportunity to procrastinate on it. The only reason why people procrastinate is because they think that they have more time to do it later, but the reality is that time to do it later is never guaranteed. That time to do it later, we take that time to do it later for granted, as though it's going to be there, as though we know that it's going to be there, but it's never, ever, ever guaranteed. I guess you could also talk about in the context of live in the moment. This moment is really all we have. The past is in the past. The future is in the future. We can't predict the future. We can't know the future. All we can do is take past experiences, use them, not dwell on them or live in the past, but use them to influence the moments that we have now, because the moments that we have now are the only thing that we actually have, number one, and number two, are the only thing that's going to influence what's going to happen to us in the future. So, yeah, guys, that's it for today. Don't procrastinate on your dreams. Do what you say. Go kill it.